Hey everybody, thanks for listening to the El Toro's podcast, exclusively now on Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Here, let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on things like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast, which is always a plus, with no minimum listenership. And it's everything you need to make a podcast right at your fingertips and in one place. I can't believe it took me this long to switch over to Anchor.fm, but I couldn't be happier now. So, get yourself started and download the free Anchor app now, or go to Anchor.fm to get started.
Welcome everyone to episode 29 of the Capital Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Sean O'Brien. You can catch us here every Wednesday afternoon at soundcloud.com/LTorsPodcast and IRWnetwork.com. Just search the podcast section. Follow us on Twitter at Capital Wrestling without the G. Follow me on Twitter at Sean Neutron. Any business inquiries, go to capitalwrestling@gmail.com. And if you'd like to purchase tickets for our upcoming show live from Hoboken, New Jersey at 301 Garden Street, the Hopes Community Center, go to capitalwrestling.com. We also have plenty of great merchandise available for sale right now at ProWrestlingTees.com. Search Capital Wrestling, and at whatamaneuver.net. You got onesies, hoodies, beanies, t-shirts, sweatshirts, everything you can want. Go check them out there. Great designs there. You can catch us live every Monday night at 7:05 via gfqlive.tv. Also, we have replays here on IRWnetwork.com and pivotshare.com. So there's lots to look forward to right now on the road to Hoboken. Our return there will be October 14th. Doors open at 7. Card starts at 8. It's going to be headlined by a double main event of the champion of the 1%, Logan East Road, taking on the Concrete Rose, Sonny Kiss. The Rogue, Anthony Gangone, will be taking on the Bad Apple, Matt McIntosh. The Capital Wrestling Television Champion, the Colossal Mike Law, will be defending his title versus Bo Crockett, representing the NRA. We get to see a Tag Team Mayhem match with the career ender Timmy Danger, Ryan Zane, Stan Styles, with Portia Vaughn and Neil Sharkey versus Ronnie Burton, Joey Ace, and a partner to be named later. New York Wrecking Crew with Matthew Ryan Shapiro will be taking on the Perfect Strangers. The Perfect Strangers will be looking for their first win. The New York Wrecking Crew is not in a good mood after their loss via technicality at the last show, so that'll be a very unique matchup. I can't wait to see it. Logan Black will be taking on Juba. Ken Dixon and the Endgame Paul Jourdain will be teaming up together to take on the team of Sex Crazed, Matt Sells and Smiley. Jasin Karloff will be taking on the Mofo Mark Bravura. And a battle of two young and talented guys, Joe Keys will be taking on Killian McMurphy. So that's going to be a really fun matchup right there. Great night of action. And tonight we get to talk to two guests. A little bit later on, we'll be talking to Portia Vaughn and her effect on the Tag Team Champions, Luxury Muscles Incorporated, and also the effect she looks to have on the Tag Team Mayhem match come October 14th. So I can't wait to talk to her. I'm sure she has plenty to say. But our first guest of the night is a returning guest. He will be taking on Jasin Karloff. He is representing the NRA come October 14th. And he's none other than the Mofo Mark Bravura. How's it going, Mark?
Hello, sir. How are you doing today? And as always, whoa, 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 whoa. It's the Mofo on the Capital Wrestling Podcast.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you back on here, man.
I'm sure that it is. It is a pleasure for you to have me on this podcast.
I think I said it last time, but I'll say it again. The integrity is upgraded immediately.
Immediately. The class, the integrity, the entertainment value, all of the above are upgraded on anything in which the Mofo takes part.
And you can't replicate that. So, once again, your time is precious, and we very much appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Now, what have you been up to lately, man?
Well, as always, the Mofo has been traveling the country, competing in professional wrestling events from sea to shining sea, coast to coast, and border to border. He's actually been slowing down a little bit over the summer months as the Mofo has his little Mofo, who he wanted to spend a little bit extra time with over the summer, the little Jofo, who you can check out from time to time on the Mofo's Instagram, at Mempho Mofo. But, the Mofo's been getting back in the swing of things. He was just up at the Monster Factory on Saturday night, and he will be in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, this coming Saturday for Primal Conflict Wrestling, teaming up with his NRA brethren, the Pain Train Preston Quinn, going for the Primal Conflict Wrestling Tag Team Championships, and those would look great around the National Wrestling Alliance members' waists.
And that's going to be one hell of a show. I've been seeing the card for that one, and I guess you have Ken Dixon on that card as well with his PCW Heavyweight Championship.
That's true. Ken Dixon will be putting that title on the line against Joey Matthews, formerly of M&M, and also Ricky the Dragon Steamboat will be in attendance. And I think that the Mofo and the Pain Train might demand that Ricky Steamboat place the Primal Conflict Wrestling Tag Team titles around our waist after we emerge victorious.
Wow, that's a very bold declaration right there.
Well, it'll be his pleasure to be able to get that close to superstars of our stature.
Maybe you can give the kid a rub.
That's what we're thinking, is we'll give him a little bit of a rub, help him out with his next booking.
No, Harpers Ferry is a wonderful place, and I went to school at Shepherdstown, so I'm not too far from it. You said the little Mofo going on. What was your schedule like compared to before you had her?
The Mofo tries to at least take a little bit of time off when he can, because on the weekends, that's the time that I can be with her and Mrs. Mofo, and we can hang out with all the Mofo fans and family. So it's nice to be able to do that every once in a while. So try to take a weekend off a month to get a little bit of family time in as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
But still trying to stay active, Once you've been at this for a while, your body gets used to falling down on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't fall down on purpose for a while, your body starts to hate you because it remembers all the things that you've done to it. So you kind of have to stay in the groove. And if you get out of that groove, then your body gets really, really angry. So I had taken a few weeks off prior to the Monster Factory, and my body was very, very angry with me the last 2 days. Like, we had forgotten what this felt like. You need to just fall down on purpose randomly if you're going to take a couple weeks off.
So what kind of recovery process is that like? Is there like more stretching you do or different like kind of techniques?
Active release. So if you're familiar with things like trigger points and foam rolling and things like that,
mm-hmm.
you got to do a lot of that stuff to kind of release the bumps and bruises. And it's torturous, but it's the best way to recover. So lots of foam rolling and trigger point stuff to get back into it, and then you got to get your butt back in the gym as soon as possible after it, because the longer you wait, the more your body's just going to get stiff, and it's not going to want to lift anything. So as soon as you can, get back in the gym and get back moving, so that your body, despite being beat up, realizes, hell, I'm not going to get a break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the older we get, it doesn't get any easier.
The body, it likes to stay in whatever condition you're leaving it in. So if you allow it to chill out and become a little lax, then it's going to want to stay there. So my recommendation to everybody is to not let that happen, or else you're going to feel everything a lot more. Things that wrestlers deal with that normal human beings don't deal with, like most people can't understand why we would want to keep falling down on purpose, and they can't understand why if you don't fall down on purpose for a while, your body feels worse than if you do. It's just the way it is.
Well, sometimes I see what you guys do in the ring, and and then just hearing about the everyday lifestyle, and I kind of think to myself, well, I just did this basic thing, and I have to go to the doctor for this. I can't imagine putting my body on the line and putting it all out there for that. So I mean, I'm always all the respect in the world, and I'm always impressed.
I was talking with a friend of mine, Adam Thornstow from the Reno Scum. We were conversing back and forth, and he was mentioning how he's recovering from a torn bicep, and they had told him it was going to be a year-long recovery, and he was back in less than 6 months. And the doctors just didn't understand how that could happen, but they don't understand that we just have a different pain threshold than the average human being.
Mm-hmm. Now, with something like that, when you come back early from an injury, I'm sure you've dealt with them in the past, but is there a big risk there, or did generally your body so you're comfortable with it?
Well, I mean, if you're smart, then you're always going to wait for the doctor to give you the okay, but I think most people don't understand that because of the things we do, we are able to recover faster than a normal person. So, for instance, when I shattered my clavicle, they told me I was going to be out a year because I broke it into 8 pieces, and they were putting a steel plate and 13 screws in there, and that's just not the kind of thing that you come back particularly quickly from. But it just so happened that as a wrestler, I heal up faster than the average person. So 5, 6, 7 months later, it had healed to the point that the doctor was like, okay, you look like you've been recovering for a year, and it's only been 7 months. It's just because of the things that we do, the rate at which we train, our bodies are adapted to a different set of basic conditions than the ordinary human beings, so we're able to recover faster.
That's a very good point. Was there any complications afterwards or any, scares?
Before I had been cleared, I had been allowed to do a few things, and this is when I was training with Taz, and I wasn't allowed to bump or anything yet, but I was doing some refereeing for a training match, and Taz was attempting to show the guys different ways to do covers, and he was, here, Mofo, just lie down. So I laid down, he shows a couple different covers, and then he grabs my left arm, which is the one that I had torn up,
oh, God.
And he barred it and took it over my head, and you could literally hear the scar tissue break.
Oh.
And I had never seen Taz scared, but the look on his face was the closest thing to fear I had ever seen on his face. And he goes, oh my God, are you okay? And I'm like, and everybody stopped. Oh my God, he just ripped everything out of his shoulder again. And I just moved my arms a few times, and I was like, oh, hey, I think you broke up my scar tissue. I can move it more than I did before. And it was just like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. And he looked over at the guy who was the trainer, this guy, Mike Mitchell. He says, bro, I felt everything, bro. I felt all the scar tissue, bro. I felt it all pop, bro, everything, bro. Bro.
He uses them like their exclamation points.
Yes. Taz is a fun guy to listen to talk.
As a veteran in the business, what is your biggest pet peeve over the years that you've developed?
Biggest pet peeve. I don't know if it's my biggest, but there are a lot of little things that drive me nuts. Like, I hate it when guys don't wear wrist tape.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just makes you look a little bit too naked. Because we're all pretty naked out there anyway, but if you don't have elbow pads or wrist tape, then you just look extra naked. And you just look a little bit too naked. It takes you from, athlete to, maybe male porn star level. I don't know. That one bugs me, not wearing wrist tape. I also don't like it when guys don't wear knee pads. Maybe that's just because I have bad knees, and if I land on a knee not wearing knee pads, then it bothers me for a long time. So when guys don't have knee pads, I always think that looks funny, so I'm definitely not a fan of guys not wearing knee pads. Those are little, weird pet peeves. There are bigger ones, so there was this guy who showed up in a show I was on in North Carolina and threw up in the ring.
Oh.
Because he was so out of shape that he threw up in the ring, and he just sat, he didn't even, throw up and then roll and, try to get out of the ring. He just threw up everything in the ring. And so they had to get cleaned up, and he comes to the back, and rather than apologize, he was, laughing about it. It was funny. And those of us who had to, wrestle later in the show did not find it funny at all.
Yeah.
And to me, if I had just thrown up in your workspace, I would be very apologetic. I would not be laughing about it and treating it as if it were a joke. I would be apologizing to you profusely. But this person was just laughing about it. That did not go over very well with any of us.
If anything, be very sorry about it, but the fact that he wasn't, it almost kind of, no pun intended, spits in your face.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it definitely does. So that was very annoying. And there are lots of things. I'm sure if I sat down and wrote them down, I would come up with many more. Somebody who runs a promotion, has booked a mini promotion, people who send you really bad or insufficient booking inquiry emails are always a huge pet peeve. The greatest one I ever got was, this is it exactly, it was would, W-U-D-U, the letter U, book, B-O-K, A, the letter A, T-T, F-R-M-N-C.
And what does that last part mean?
From North Carolina.
Oh, my gosh.
It was, would you book a tag team from North Carolina?
Oh, T-T. Oh, I get it now.
Yeah, he did not get booked.
Oh, shocker.
Yeah, very shocking.
And I was just gonna say that as somebody who's not only a wrestler but also a promoter, that's one thing that bugs you, and I'm sure there's plenty more.
Yeah, little tip to everybody: if you're on an event, if you're on a card, push the card, share the. If you see a post, share it. If you see the poster, share it. If see it on Twitter, retweet it. Shout out to Chris Sharp, refereeing for Fusion Wrestling on October 7th, has done more to promote the card. Anybody who doesn't officially work in the office in some sort of capacity, Chris Sharp is the man. If you're looking for a rep, book Chris Sharp.
So, yeah, I mean, I've heard of that struggle as well, where a lot of guys on cards are not doing their best to promote it.
You don't even have to necessarily do your best. Just do something. Share, retweet. That's better than anything. If you can invite the people you know that are in the area, that's even better.
Yeah.
Little things like that definitely help out.
Yeah.
There are guys who don't even like the pages of companies that they wrestle for. How do you do that?
It's like,
a quick explanation of how Facebook works for people.
I like it.
If somebody is a fan of a Facebook fan page, if they like it, if they're a fan, they see maybe 20% at most of the posts that page puts up.
Yeah.
The more those posts get liked and shared, the more people it gets showed to. So if you like and share every post, or even most of the posts from the events, from the companies that you work for, they will be shown to more people, and that will help more people get there. The more people that get there, the more money's being paid, the bigger the gate, the bigger the chance that you're going to get paid better. So share and like posts. It's pretty simple.
It's just basic math.
It might be 2 clicks.
It's like these wrestlers, like, I like the promotion, but I don't know if I like the promotion.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now, I actually forgot to start the show off with this. Shame on me. We found out, I think, was it last night, the passing of Bobby the Brain Heenan, one of the all-time legends and greats in this business. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, obviously, it's very sad that he would pass away. He's been in ill health for quite some time. So on one hand, it's very sad for everybody. I feel awful for his family that he's passed away. On the other hand, you've got to at least feel for the man that the pain that he's been in and the suffering he's had over the last several years is over. So if you want to give it any sort of positive spin, at least he doesn't have to deal with that suffering anymore.
Yeah.
It's a huge loss to the professional wrestling business just because the man is probably the greatest all-around performer, if you think of all the different things that he did in front of the camera ever, because he was great when he wrestled, he was a great manager, he was a great commentator. The only guy I can think of that's in the same level is Jerry Lawler, and Lawler was never a manager. And, while Heenan was never like a straight-up wrestler, he did wrestle quite often. He was great whenever he did it. So if you think about guys who did all those different roles, Heenan's got to be towards the top of the list of guys who fulfilled multiple roles in the wrestling business. That doesn't even mention just how funny the guy was, like how friendly he was to fans, what a good person he was, how good he was when he did things outside of the wrestling business. If you think about his appearances with David Letterman, things like that, he was always incredibly entertaining, class act from anybody who ever met him. The few times that I got to meet him, he was an incredibly classy guy. So obviously a huge loss to the wrestling business, and hopefully people who aren't familiar with him go back and watch him on the network or on YouTube or whatever and just experience how good he was at everything that he did in the business.
Yeah, you're right. And there's so much to enjoy. So many things he did, not just an announcer, not just a manager, but that brings to mind a lot of people talk about like the Mount Rushmore of wrestlers and who they put on, those 4 top wrestlers of all time. Who would you do for like the top managers of all time?
Oh, it's Heenan, Cornette, Dangerously, Hart.
Mm-hmm.
Be mine. Obviously, it's skewed towards my lifetime. I think people would make arguments about Grand Wizard or Albano or Saul Weingroff or,
J.J. Dillon.
J.J. Dillon, guys in the past. I mean, obviously, J.J. fits into my timeline. I always felt like J.J. was a step lower than that group. I mean, he was great, but I never thought he was in the level with those 4. Gary Hart, who I'm a huge Gary Hart fan. I think he's one of the greatest bookers of all time, but as a manager, I always felt like I wouldn't put him on my Mount Rushmore.
Mm. Yeah, and I think there's, Larry Sweeney, he was on a smaller scale, but also just a very charismatic fellow before his, unfortunate, early demise.
Very true.
So, I mean, had he gotten more chance to continue his career, I think he would have grown into something even more special.
Yeah, I think probably of the 4, the guy that I would think, if you're talking just as a manager, you could pull out for me would be like Dangerously is the 4th on there because Heenan drew money, Cornette drew money, Jimmy Hart drew so much money in Memphis, and then Dangerously, it's hard to make the argument about as great as he was that he truly drew a lot of money. So you could maybe pop Gary Hart up or one of those guys if you can make the money drawing argument about.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting because Paulie Dangerously, he went from being a manager and then obviously the ECW promoter, and then now he's reinvented himself again as a manager for Brock Lesnar, and he's just the fact that he could reinvent himself like that, I think is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and if you think about it, his run with Brock is probably the time that Dangerously's truly been a draw as a talker.
You're right, and like even the fans are, chanting his phrases for him. So that's definitely something we hadn't seen, years ago.
Yeah, and I would say to people who only know Bobby Heenan from WWF Bobby Heenan, which is obviously great, but the best Bobby Heenan is the Nick Bockwinkel Bobby Heenan.
Mm-hmm.
That pairing is amazing, and usually you don't stick a great talking manager with a great talking wrestler, and both those guys were incredible promos, but something about the chemistry between them and the dichotomy of those two characters worked together incredibly well. So if anybody hasn't seen any of the stuff with Nick Bockwinkel and Bobby Heenan together, that's like the number one thing to go check out if you're going to check out Bobby Heenan stuff.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, you weren't able to be at the last Capital Wrestling show in their debut in Hoboken. But did you get a chance to watch it so far?
I may have done some scouting here and there. I've known both Mr. Karloff and Mr. Easton LaRue for quite some time, so I was interested to check out their contest and see some of the other talent competing at Capital Wrestling in and outside of the National Wrestling Alliance. So it was important to keep up and see things, how they were progressing there at Capital and where the Mofo might slither his way into the situation there.
Yeah, I think tonight we saw the match between Sonny Kiss and Paul Jourdain, which was very dramatic and lots on the line there. And Sonny Kiss comes out with the win and does not make Matthew Ryan Shapiro very happy, but it was definitely a spectacle. I mean, Paul Jourdain, love him or hate him, he's a very talented guy who's definitely made an impact in Capital Wrestling.
Well, Paul Jourdain is an impressive athlete. He's a big monster of a man. Whether it be in singles competition or tag team competition, he's an impressive fella. And for Sonny Kiss to come out with a victory, no matter how he gained it, is very impressive against an athlete the quality of the endgame Paul Jourdain.
Who, by the way, will be on this podcast next week. Looking forward to talking to him again. Cheap plug right there. As you mentioned, you talk about Logan Slaro. He also was not at the last show. I think that was the first Capital show he had not been on. So he's going to be making his return versus Sonny Kiss at the next show. He fought Jasin Karloff in Jason's debut, and Jasin just looked very, he just showed how powerful he is. What are your thoughts heading into that match?
Oh, the Mofo has to say that he was a little bit surprised that this is who was chosen to be his opponent for his debut in Capital Wrestling when he signed an open contract with Capital Wrestling. Considering all the history that the Mofo has with Marcus Dowling, he thought that maybe there'd be some consideration given to sort of easing things into the process, that he might be given someone not quite as destructive as Jasin Karloff. Not that the Mofo was nervous or scared about that sort of thing. The Mofo has beaten plenty of monsters. The Mofo has beaten more monsters than Van Helsing. The Mofo has caused more monster movie flops than Sony. The Mofo has taken down more men of that size than diabetes. So it's not really that the Mofo is worried about those sort of things. It's just that, the first time in a place, you kind of want to ease things in. And, the Mofo and Jasin Karloff, we go way, 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 way back. We go all the way back to Team Taz. We were two of the first guys to be a part of Team Taz. Jasin knows the Mofo, and the Mofo knows Jasin. And that makes for quite a challenge for both of us because we know each other's weaknesses and we know each other's strengths.
Mm-hmm.
So that just sort of seems like this is not the most productive pairing for Capital Wrestling. If I were Capital Wrestling, I would probably be thinking, hey, these are two guys who should be kept apart for a while. Let them, build up some things, and then maybe we'll throw them together. But no, Capital Wrestling says, hey, fans, here's two awesome athletes. We're not going to keep them all apart at all. We're going to put them together the very first time the Mofo was in the company. So the Mofo was pretty surprised by that. Not that he's scared, not that he's nervous, just surprised. So the Mofo's not going to really go into his strategy going against Jasin Karloff. He's not going to mention that he might, bring a steak or a silver bullet or garlic or anything like that, because those might be a sort of apropos thing to bring with you if you're facing a guy like Jasin Karloff, because I'm not entirely sure he's human. Not entirely sure that he's human. He apparently has superhuman strength. If you watch him, that's pretty obvious. If you've ever been on his Instagram and see the stuff you do on there, you're going to be taken aback, because that isn't something that a normal human being does. And the best way to explain it is just to say, he's not a normal human being. He's not. Not just by looking at him, he does kind of look like Uncle Festus, just a little bit. He kind of looks like Michael Chiklis before he becomes the Thing. Just sort of. Those are two monsters that I wouldn't want to put together in the same place. And while the Mofo is not upset, not nervous, not scared at all about facing Jasin Karloff, he does have to plan a little bit differently than usual, just because the Mofo and Karloff know each other so well.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you were to defeat Jasin, where do you think that puts you in the pecking order for Capital Wrestling?
Well, considering what Jasin Karloff did to Logan Easton LaRue, you've got to assume that the Mofo is going to be rapidly ascending up the ladder in Capital Wrestling if he defeats Jasin Karloff. I'm just looking at the man and his record, the things he's done in places like Warriors of Wrestling, which is right across the water from Capital Wrestling. You have to think that if the Mofo defeats Jasin Karloff, then he's got to be towards the top of the list to be a champion here in Capital Wrestling, especially when you consider the Mofo's track record. The longest reigning champion in the history of Fusion Wrestling, over 600 days. Who does that? Only the Mofo.
That is very impressive, and that's why Capital Wrestling is very lucky to have you. But also, you're part of the NRA with your, Preston Quinn, Bo Crockett. So Bo Crockett on the card is facing Mike Law, and originally it was for the Intergender Championship of the Known Universe. Now that title has been Colossal Mike Law himself has called it the Capital Wrestling television title. What are your thoughts on that, and what are your thoughts on Bo versus Mike?
Well, in the Mofo, he saw on Twitter that Mike Law says that he always gives 110%, and the Mofo said, slacker, that's pretty lazy. Giving 110% isn't all that much. If he had said 1,010%, the Mofo might be impressed. That would still be less than half of an effort that Bo Crockett typically gives. On a bad day, Bo Crockett only gives 2,000%. That's a bad day. That's not if he's not feeling good. Maybe he's got a little bit of an upset stomach. Then 2,000% is all that he gives. On a good day, Bo Crockett usually gives about 2,000,000%. That's a good day for Bo, is 2,000,000%. Average, he ends up at about 1,000,000%. So when someone tells me that he's only going to give 110%, the Mofo's just not going to be that impressed with that, especially when you're going up against Bo Crockett. So if you were to ask the Mofo how things were going to go in the match between Colossal Mike Law and Bo Crockett at the next Capital Wrestling event, the Mofo would have to say that unless something strange happens, unless Mike Law is able to maybe give Bo Crockett food poisoning, maybe some kind of infection or a virus of some sort or some kind, then the Mofo just can't really see Mike Law coming out on top of Bo Crockett. He'll give a great effort. Mike Law will give that 110% effort, but when you're going against Bo Crockett, who on an average day is giving 1,000,000%, the Mofo just can't see that 110% is really going to be able to measure up to that.
That's a lot of percent right there, and that's a lot of belief in the man known as Bo Crockett, and that's why he's part of the National Wrestling Alliance with Mark Bravura, Preston Quinn. Now, where is Preston Quinn? He's not going to be on this card, so what is PQ up to these days?
Well, as you know, we are the National Wrestling Alliance. We're not the Regional Wrestling Alliance. We're not the District Wrestling Alliance. We're not the State Wrestling Alliance. We're not even like the Eastern Seaboard Wrestling Alliance. We're the National Wrestling Alliance. And the Pain Train Preston Quinn, much like the Mofo, much like Bo Crockett, much like Bob Evans and Tough Tim Hughes, we are in demand all across the country. And the Pain Train Preston Quinn, well, sorry, Capital Wrestling didn't get to him quite in time to book his services for the 14th, and Preston was already scheduled to be somewhere else representing the National Wrestling Alliance all across the country. So he is going to be out across the country defending the name of the National Wrestling Alliance, spreading the gospel of the National Wrestling Alliance, and showing that the National Wrestling Alliance is truly the greatest faction in all of professional wrestling. Not just Capital Wrestling, not just Primal Conflict Wrestling, but wrestling all across the country.
Now, what kind of effect has the National Wrestling Alliance had on the wrestling world in general, in your opinion?
Well, if you think about the way that the professional wrestling business has been going as of late, you see sort of a transformation, a move away from the traditional form of professional wrestling. Big, strong, mean, angry, tough athletes. Real men and women. Guys who were used to competing in their entire lives. From the age of 3 all the way up through college, the Mofo was a top-level athlete. Same with Pain Train Preston Quinn. Same with Bo Crockett. Same with Bob Evans. Same with Tim Hughes. These were all things that we were used to competing. We are not the kind of guys who didn't make the those type of guys. We're not the type of guys who were nerds sitting around drawing pictures and thinking about the internet and how they were going to tweet and what they were going to do their status update about. This is not the world that we came from. We were not playing video games. We were not on Xbox Live. Of course, that didn't exist 10, 15 years ago, but that's not the kind of things that we would be doing. We were mostly competing and chasing women. Those were the things that we did. That's how the Mofo came up. Those were the things that the Mofo was really interested in. Of course, the Mofo was also an incredibly intelligent guy, went to grad school, went to one of the top 20 universities in the country, played sports all throughout that time. But the Mofo was always competing. And that's not something that a lot of the guys coming up today really do. You've got guys who came up building Legos. Nothing against Legos. Legos are great. But the Mofo wasn't spending his time putting together Lego sets. He just wasn't. The Mofo wasn't spending his time worrying about what his latest game of, what was that? What's that game? World of Warcraft. The Mofo was not playing World of Warcraft. That's not what he was thinking about. So when you think about the National Wrestling Alliance and what our effect on the professional wrestling business has been, is we're refocusing the professional wrestling business on wrestling. Not the show. Not guys worrying about getting booked on the show. I wasn't booked on the show. Who cares? Who cares if you weren't booked on the show? Okay, you didn't get booked on the show. Get booked on another show. The way the Mofo likes to think of it is make it so that you can't not be booked. Make it so you're so good and so valuable that a company can't not book you. They must book you because you're that good. Don't go on the internet and whine about it. I didn't get booked on the show. And then whine and cry. And then if you happen to get booked on the show afterwards, say, I would like to thank my opponent for putting on a great match last night. It was great. We did all this stuff and we shook hands afterwards and it was tremendous. I did 14 flips. It was awesome. We just don't want to hear that. You're never going to see a member of the National Wrestling Alliance putting over anybody on the internet after an event. We're just not going to do it. We might say, hey, great effort, buddy, but you came up short. Next time, don't lead with your jaw and we won't knock it off. Because that's the kind of thing that we do. We beat people up. We take money. We go around the country, we collect titles, we collect gold, and we do great with that. And that's what we want wrestling to be again. We want wrestling to be about wrestling. About tough guys fighting, competing, winning titles, winning money, winning championships. That's what it's supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about whining about not getting on the show and posting about social media afterwards. It's supposed to be about competition. In the NRA, we are all about competition.
Which brings me up, we've mentioned your match with Jasin Karloff on this card. Do you have any parting words for Jasin?
You know what? This is what the Mofo has to say about Jasin Karloff. Thank God. The more he thinks about it, thank God the Mofo is wrestling Jasin Karloff. Because if there's one thing the Mofo knows about Jasin Karloff, he's not going to be whining before, during, or after the event, no matter what happens. Jasin Karloff could drop a 300-pound log on his head the day before the event, and he won't make an excuse. He won't whine about it. He won't cry about it. He won't try to blame anything on it. He'll stick a Band-Aid on it, and he'll be there in Hoboken to fight the Mofo. And the Mofo, he's going to say it straight up. He's going to pull out each and every stop that exists to try to beat Jasin Karloff. Because when you're going against a monster, that's what you have to do. If it means pulling a chain, the Mofo will pull a chain. If it means pulling brass knucks, the Mofo will pull brass knucks. If it means throwing powder, the Mofo's throwing powder. If it means throwing fire, the Mofo's throwing fire. If it means having every member of the NRA run in, then that's what we're going to do, because I'm fighting a monster. And no matter what happens, if I pull out all those tricks and beat Jasin Karloff, the Mofo guarantees the next day Jasin Karloff won't be whining about it. Jasin Karloff will be swearing to God that the next time he's going to kick the Mofo's ass. And the Mofo is fine with that, because the Mofo is looking forward to competing with Jasin Karloff. Because bad as he is, tough as he is, strong as he is, he knows that Jasin Karloff will look the Mofo in the face, and the Mofo will look Jasin Karloff in the face, and we're going to battle. We're going to fight. We're going to go head-to-head, nose-to-nose, and toes like two bad mofos. And there are not a lot of people in the world that the Mofo will call a mofo, but Jasin Karloff damn sure is a mofo. And on October 14th in Hoboken at Capitol Wrestling, the Mofo and Jasin Karloff, we go face to face and we battle, and it's going to be a war, and the best man's going to come out on top. And the Mofo says that best man is on October 14th. You better be ready to get Mo. You better be ready to get Mo. Because you're going to get Mofo.
And that's quite a compelling argument from the Mofo Mark Bravura. And it's, as always, man, great to have you on here. Before we get out of here, where else can we see you before October 14th? And where can fans connect with you?
Well, this coming up Saturday, the 23rd, in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, at the Harpers Ferry KOA, the Mofo and the Pain Train. Oh, actually, it's not in Harpers Ferry. It's in
Ransom,
West Virginia. Ransom, at the Ransom Civic Center. It's the Mofo and the Pain Train. As part of the Revolution Rumble, Enter the Dragon for the Primal Conflict Wrestling Tag Team Championships and a Fatal 4-Way for the Tag Team Championships. We are the only undefeated tag team in Primal Conflict Wrestling, and we will be walking out of Ransom at the Ransom Civic Center with those Tag Team Championships. Then on September 30th, everybody should be at the Monster Factory in Paulsboro, New Jersey for This Is War. Following that, October 7th, for Fusion Wrestling, returning to Body by D Gym and Fitness Center in Yorktown, Virginia for Fallout. The main event of that night will be MVP taking on the experienced Damian Wayne. Also in action will be Punishment Martinez from Ring of Honor, Jesse Bell Smothers, the Bad Boy Shane Andrews, the Man of Tomorrow, Daniel Eads, the Mempho will be in a Fatal 4-Way against True Talent, Bobby Shields, the Game Changer Eric Royal, and the Standout Franco Varga. And there will also be, we can't say who, but there will be a huge, ginormous, the biggest surprise in the history of Fusion Wrestling will be happening that night, and you have to be there live. We can't announce it until the day of the event, but this is something that will be huge for everyone in attendance, an incredible opportunity, an opportunity that doesn't come along very often. Everyone should be there. This is huge, special opportunity, surprise, will be taking place on October 7th at Fallout, and we can't announce it until the day of. We are legally not allowed to do so. So just trust the Mofo. Get your tickets because you will want to be there. And then October 14th in Hoboken for Capital Wrestling, the Mofo and Jasin Karloff. Where else would you want to be? Nowhere. You want to be in Hoboken.
Now, you mentioned the Monster Factory. Do you have an opponent for MFPW yet?
That has not yet been determined, but we will hopefully be figuring that out very, very soon.
Excellent, excellent. Well, and also, where can fans find you on social media?
Find the Mofo on social media, on Twitter at MemphoMofo, on Instagram at MemphoMofo, and unfortunately Facebook doesn't like the word Mofo, so you've got to go with Facebook.com/Mark Bravura Wrestler. That's where you can find the Mofo on social media, and www.memphomofo.com.
And do we have any merchandise for sale these days?
Yes, merch. Go to squareup.com/MemphoMofo to get your t-shirts, get your foam fists, get your 8x10s, get your DVDs, and all that kind of fun stuff. So be sure to do that. And if you're at any of the events the Mofo mentioned previously, you can also get all of that merchandise. The foam fists, they're flying off the shelves. Everybody loves the foam fists.
Well, the foam fists are quite a big seller right there. So once again, Mark, we really want to thank you for coming on tonight. It is my pleasure.
Thank you, sir. It has been a wonderful time talking with you again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast, and next week with Paul Jourdain, the Endgame.
Now we're going to take a quick break, and after the break, we're going to have the Femivist, Portia Vaughn, the manager of the Capital Wrestling Tag Team Champions, Luxury Muscles Incorporated, on here to talk about, well, lots of things, because she's never short for words. So we're going to have her on here in a few minutes, and now we're going to take a quick break. And welcome back to episode 29 of the Capital Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Sean O'Brien. You catch here every Wednesday afternoon at irwnetwork.com and also soundcloud.com/eltorspodcast. Follow us on Twitter at Capital Wrestling without the G. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean Neutron. You can catch us every Monday night at gfqlive.tv with replays on irwnetwork.com and PivotShare. And if you want any business inquiries, go to capitalwrestling@gmail.com. Go get tickets for the October 14th show, our return to Hoboken. Thank you to the Mofo, Mark Bravura, for coming on a little bit earlier and talking about his upcoming match versus Jasin Karloff. Now we move on to another member of the Capital roster. And I enjoy highlighting the entire, not just the roster, but all sorts of talent. Whether we've had Greg Massey on here from the production sound side, we've had Mike Keener on here from as the senior official, and now tonight you're going to hear from one of the actually the most outspoken female in Capital Wrestling. She is the manager of the Capital Wrestling Tag Team Champions, Luxury Muscles Incorporated. She's the Femivist, Portia Vaughn. How's it going, Portia?
Yes, hi. I want to make sure, first of all, I know that women sometimes have to repeat themselves. I want to make sure that your listeners know who I am and that I'm introduced properly, which you almost got right. I am Portia Vaughn, and I am the only female manager in Capital Wrestling. I am a blogger. I am a femivist, which to those who don't know is a feminist activist, so that you're educated on the topic of women's issues. And I am the manager of Luxury Muscles Incorporated, who are currently the tag team champions in Capital Wrestling.
Are you the first ever femivist?
I definitely not. There have been many, many femivists. Hashtag Femivist Unite. However, I feel that I am the first one to co-opt this phrase, to start using it, and of course it is free for anybody that feels that they are also feminist activists and want to work toward the cause that feminists around the world are working toward. They can absolutely use it, men and women all together, although it is somewhat difficult for men to think that they are feminists.
Working towards that goal, how do you do that as part of Capital Wrestling?
I have said it before, and I will say it again, that I look toward one of the ultimate supporters of feminism, Lena Dunham, the beacon of modern feminism, where she said that the more famous and powerful I get, the more I have to hurt men. This must be the manifesto of every female in this country, because our rights and our power are slowly being taken away by men. We saw it in our most recent election, which, by the way, a study was done at Sarah Lawrence University just this past December, where it was proved that over 75% of the voters agreed that a woman should not be in the White House. Should not be in the White House. I mean, everyone of your listeners should be disgusted to hear that 3/4 of this country are absolutely sexist and would love to go back to a time where women kept their heads down, their mouths shut, and a bun in the oven. And yeah, I mean both, being pregnant and a literal bun in the oven, because of course we were not allowed to leave the kitchen. So this is currently what reflects the current state of the country. It is indicative of the state of Capital Wrestling right now. The men in charge, along with the other male wrestlers and male managers, just cannot stand to see a woman succeed, nor can they stand to see the supporters of the women succeed, aka the tag team champions, Luxury Muscles Incorporated. That is why I am there.
What attracted you to Capital in the first place, and
Sure. And I have said this before, and again, I suppose it is the nature of a woman. I have said before, Margaret Thatcher has said that in order to be heard, a woman has to say something twice, that a man only has to say once. So apparently for me, it's going to be 3 or 4 or 5 times. But that's fine. We'll move on. I have a blog, I have a Facebook page, Penises Are Microaggressions, which I encourage everybody to go to. And while I was there, I saw the page for Capital Wrestling, and just like every other male-dominated company, there were no women involved. There was no touch of female empowerment whatsoever. And what attracted me to Bobby and Stan is that they are not like any other wrestler in this very heavily populated male industry. They are physically superior, and they're intellectually superior, and they truly care about supporting women. They actually put their trust in women instead of just paying lip service like the rest of you. I mean, you all say that you respect women. You say that you see us as equals. I mean, sure, we have the right to vote. We can get a great education. We can earn a living in one of the richest nations in the world. Sure, we can wear what we want without being imprisoned or condemned by any religious faction. I mean, yeah, the percentage of women with CEO titles or any other high-powered positions are growing larger and larger by the day. But does that make us equal? No, we're still not equal. There is still a long, long way to go. Hashtag yes, all women. And these decisions are still in the hands of all the men in this country. This includes Capital Wrestling. And you can see it every day in your own life. Just to you, your mother, sister, your girlfriend, your wife, or even your grandmother. When she walks down the street, do you think that they feel absolutely safe? No. Every day, 90% of women, every single day, are harassed by men on the street with their catcalling and their microaggressions, like asking us, "Oh, why don't you smile?" or other condescending questions like, "Do you know the directions to the nearest supermarket? I'm lost." Why are you asking me that? Because I'm a woman and I know all about shopping, right? I will say this. I have had it with men gaslighting me and any other strong female in this country, and as we're speaking about it more specifically, in Capital Wrestling. Which is why it really is not just an honor, but it is a duty of mine to manage the only men who truly support women and the struggles that they have to face. I really hope that your listeners and anyone who watches Capital Wrestling understands that behind every champion should be a woman telling them what to do. It has obviously been proven successful.
So, you choose Bobby and Stan, and they've been very successful, but what are your thoughts on their level of competition in Capital Wrestling, whether the New York Wrecking Crew, Perfect Strangers, Tough Guy Incorporated?
I have said before, because they have the power and the intelligence of a woman behind them, by default, no other team in the division can hold a candle to them. To me, there is no competition for Bobby and Stan. Absolutely none. They have my guidance and they have my support, and on top of that, they are themselves actual true Femivists who believe in the struggle of women and believe that the power that they can bring to anything. So, to me, there is absolutely no competition.
So did winning the tag team titles at the debut show for Capital Wrestling back in March, did that validate your efforts as a manager or their efforts as wrestlers?
It should absolutely validate both. I mean, I would suggest to every wrestler out there that if you feel that there's something that you want to achieve, look around you. Are you surrounded by men and by their, single-minded, narrow way of thinking? Then maybe change that. And I can guarantee you that once you bring a woman into your circle, and even one step above that, when you surround yourself with just women and the power that they can bring, you're going to see how your success changes and how it just expounds on that.
Now, what about Capital Wrestling in terms of the first 3 shows? What's the progression been like in your eyes?
I am so thrilled to be there. I am providing a service. I feel that what I'm doing is really, it's a philanthropic matter for me. I am trying to bring forward the struggles that all the women across this country are experiencing right now, where they're not being heard, where they're seen as weak, they're not seen as being powerful. Every time that we try to speak, we're either told to be quiet, we're shut down, things are just made up, there's lies that are told about women consistently, or we're seen as just people that don't have any intelligence or power, or we can't bring anything new to the table. So for the time that I have been there, I have definitely seen an increase in how powerful women can be. I mean, just right now, you're speaking to me. You wanted to talk to me. That's a small step in the right direction. You are finally learning that me as a Femivist have something to offer. I mean, you should have figured this out along with every other male that are either listening to this or any other male that's watching Capital Wrestling. You should have figured this out before, but it's a step in the right direction, right?
Exactly. And no, but I appreciate everyone on the Capital roster, and that's why I like to highlight everyone. And, I think it was a month ago or so, I had Candace Cordelia, a very talented backstage interviewer, and she's on the Capital Beat now, the official reporter for that, and it's just good to have her on board. So what are your thoughts on her performance?
Yes, and again, that just shows the influence of myself, Portia Vaughn, where they're starting to realize that more female voices are just going to make the company better. So I am very excited that she's there. And maybe one day all of the people that are in charge of Capital will be replaced by females, maybe myself.
Now, we've obviously got a lot of talented wrestlers, whether singles or tag team in the company. Do you believe that there's, or when do you believe that we will see females in the Capital Wrestling rings?
That really depends on the people in charge, and quite honestly, especially for Marcus Dowling, I have absolutely no faith that he's going to make the right decision. I don't really think he has a clue about what he's doing or where the company might be going. He seems to be a little scatterbrained, especially considering all of the recent events. So, and the fact that there's only, one woman on the backstage part of of the company. There's only one woman manager. There's clearly a lack of foresight in the Capital Wrestling in the boardroom, if you may. So I don't know. I would hope that there would be more. Mm-hmm. I would just, again, I have very little faith in things that men run, which unfortunately is the majority of everything in this country, of companies or schools, government offices. I mean, unfortunately, it's mostly male run. So we really just have to just take it as it comes.
Now, on this upcoming card, on our return to Hoboken, we made our debut back in July. And, what were your thoughts on that location compared to the Cathedral Hall?
To me, Bobby and Stan are going to dominate no matter where the location is. I don't think that it really matters where. They've proven that they can dominate in either venue. So to me, there's really no difference there.
Coming at this next show, we're going to have Timmy Danger, Ryan Zane, and Sis and Stan Styles versus Ronnie Burton, Joey Ace, and a member to be named. So they don't even know their opponent yet. But where's Bobby?
This is why I am so proud to be working with him. He is actually going to be going for a sit-in to have Hillary Clinton's most recent book put in every single school library. So he's going to be at a sit-in for that. Because there's a lot of schools that are blocking the book. They think it's controversial, her most recent book, What Happened. And he's going to fight to have that in every school, and then possibly to have it be required reading across high schools. So he will not be there. And quite frankly, I absolutely understood. I said that is exactly why I work with you, is you prove day in, day out how you are for the cause and you're fighting for women. So I really couldn't be prouder that he's not there.
Now you're going to be alongside Neil Sharkey, who manages Timmy Danger, and Neil Sharkey's also very talented in his own right. What are your thoughts on that? How do you think you'll work together, if you will at all?
Usually with any male managers, I just try to ignore them. Like a lot of other toxic males, if I am near toxic males like that who spew their misogyny consistently, it's really not good for my health. So really, if I will try to keep my distance and really concentrate on Stan, Timmy, and Ryan, who will be victorious, because again, they're going to have me in their corner. So that is what I concentrate on. I concentrate on the people that are important to me, that are fighting for female causes when they are not in the ring.
Most of the time you're working on the chemistry between Stan and Bobby, making sure they're at 100% and that they can win these matches. This time you'll have two new allies for him with Ryan and Timmy. How do you believe that they will all mix together? I mean, you obviously said that they will win the match, but how do you think that they'll mix together chemistry-wise?
I think they're going to do amazingly. They're going to have female power behind them. They're going to have all the power of women behind them. They're going to have all of the energy of the Femivist of our past within them, the same way Stan does. And I'm certainly going to be speaking with them beforehand and make sure that they understand. When you have a woman in your corner, there is nothing that can stop you. We are underestimated, and sometimes that's a good thing. If people see you as being weaker, if they assume you're weak, if they assume you don't know as much, they assume you're not powerful, and then you can surprise them. Mm-hmm. So if anyone else wants to do the same thing and make assumptions that, there's a woman in their corner, they don't have that special something that's going to have them win matches. We've proven that wrong with Stan and Bobby, and certainly with Stan and his two other partners. It's going to be the same story.
We're going to be naming the first ever Capital Wrestling champion on October 14th. And the only other title we've had so far, aside from the tag team titles, is the Intergender Championship of the Known Universe. Colossal Mike Law holds that title, which he recently renamed the television title. What are your thoughts on that?
Most like everything, that is not surprising to me. I think it is it's another lost opportunity to possibly have a woman win the title, to maybe when they're going to finally bring in some female wrestlers to make this finally equality for everybody. I find it really disappointing that they're doing away with that. It would have been very interesting to see a female dominate Mike Law, which I think any female wrestler would be able to do very, very easily. So possibly that's another topic that Marcus might have to rethink. Get his little scatterbrain around that and possibly rethink that and introduce something else that maybe women can actually fight for.
And this past Monday night, we saw Sonny Kiss take on the Endgame, Paul Jourdain, in a match where if Sonny lost, he would have to be banished from Capital Wrestling per his own stipulation. He ended up winning the match, and before that, we got to see the Endgame. He had both tag team straps around him next to Matthew Ryan Shapiro. What happened to the tag team titles?
Yeah, what happened to the tag team titles, which is exactly a question that I posed to Marcus, which is also what I told him. And I explicitly told him, I know who stole them. And he, of course, did nothing. With his weak little man brain, he, of course, did nothing. First and foremost, I am not surprised at all by the deplorable behavior shown by Matthew Ryan Shapiro or any of his alt-right goons that support him. I'm not shocked that Shapiro believes he can lie or steal to get to the top. You know, it is symptomatic of how any male acts when they're threatened by a powerful female. I mean, to give you an example, just recently, you know, men were so threatened when the all-female Ghostbusters film came out, and it was a fun, well-thought-out, completely well-written, action-packed comedy, and it put the original male-cast Ghostbusters to shame. I mean, no one even cared anymore about that lackluster male version after the women made it better. So what did we see happen? We saw men lie about the reviews and what the critics were saying in order to feel superior to a successful female-centered project. This is the same thing that's happening here. Since Shapiro felt the need to steal titles that his team did not earn, it must show how truly frightened and intimidated he is by Luxury Muscles Incorporated. I mean, it's clear that Bobby and Stan are superior. And I've mentioned why they're superior to anyone else in the tag team division. So instead of handling things in an honest manner, or as others of his ilk would say, handling it like a man, he decides to be the conniving, gaslighting little weasel that he is and steal what rightfully belongs to Luxury Muscles Incorporated. I want to put a message out to my Femivist army out there. # Femivist army. When a man takes something from you without consent, he is stealing the very light that burns within you. He is stealing the power that every feminist in the past has fought against. Shapiro did not just steal from Bobby or Stan or me. He stole from Betsy Ross. He stole from Abigail Adams. He stole from Susan B. Anthony and Marie Curie, from Simone de Beauvoir and Sylvia Plath, from Gloria Steinem and Janet Reno, from Maya Angelou and Margaret Atwood. He stole from Ellen DeGeneres and from Oprah, from Rosie the Riveter and from Beyonce. He stole from Marge Simpson and Linda Belcher. So lean in, men of Capital Wrestling. Much like the Femivists of the past, this will not be taken lying down. We will get back what's rightfully ours. And if Matthew Ryan Shapiro would like to finally listen to a woman, I hope he listens to this. His glass ceiling is slowly caving in. So when you finally crumble under the clear, sharp shards of your own ego, you'll see a beacon reflected in the glass, and it will read, Luxury Muscles Incorporated.
A very powerful statement there from Portia Vaughn. Portia, you there? It sounds like Portia has actually just hung up on the show. Unfortunately, we hate to see her go, but we want to thank her for her time. We'd also like to thank Mark Bravura, the Mempho Mofo, for stopping by, returning to the Capital Wrestling Podcast, bringing his wisdom and insight to the show, and also previewing his match versus Jasin Karloff. It's going to be one hell of a night of action there. And October 14th, live from 301 Garden Street, the Hopes Community Center, Capital Wrestling's return to Hoboken, New Jersey. Doors open at 7 p.m., bell time's 8 p.m. Get your tickets at CapitalWrestling.com. Headlined by double main event of the champion of the 1%, Logan East LaRoe, taking on the Concrete Rose Sunny Kiss. The Rogue, Anthony Gangoan, taking on the Bad Apple, Matt McIntosh. The Capital Wrestling Television title will be on the line when champion Colossal Mike Law takes on challenger Bo Crockett, who will be representing the NRA. And the Tag Team Mayhem match will see the Career Entertaining Danger, Ryan Zane and Stan Styles team up, managed by Portia Vaughn and Neil Sharkey, versus Ronnie Burton, Joey Ace, and a partner to be named later. We're curious to see who that is and how that'll affect the match. I can't wait to see. Matthew Ryan Shapiro will be managing the New York Wrecking Crew, and they'll be taking on the Perfect Strangers, who will be looking for their first win in Capital Wrestling, and it won't be easy. The New York Wrecking Crew will be in a very bad mood, especially after their recent loss on a technicality at the last show. We're going to see Logan Black take on Juba. Ken Dixon, Paul Jourdain will be teaming up to take on the team of Sex Crazed with Matt Sells and Smiley. As mentioned before, Jasin Karloff will be taking on the Mempho Mofo, and a battle of two very young and talented stars, Killian McMurphy taking on Joe Keys, Swipe Right Joe Keys. I can't wait to see that matchup. It's going to be very exciting. Lots of great stuff there from Capital Wrestling. You can catch us every Monday night live at 7:05 via gfqlive.tv. Replays are on irwnetwork.com and pivotshare.com. Any business inquiries, go to capitalwrestling@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at Capital Wrestling without the G. This podcast can be found here every Wednesday afternoon at soundcloud.com/LTorsPodcast and irwnetwork.com. Just search the podcast section. Would you like any merchandise for Capital Wrestling? Go to whatamaneuver.net and prowrestlingtees.com. We have sweatshirts, t-shirts, beanies, onesies. We've got a little bit of everything. Go check those out. Lots of great fall wear coming up with the cold weather. And I just can't wait to be back in Hoboken, New Jersey. Next week, a fun show planned. We're going to have Juba previewing his match versus Logan Black, and the Endgame, Paul Jourdain, will be returning to the Capital Wrestling Podcast to talk about his teaming up with Ken Dixon, as well as the challenge presented to them, which is the team of Sex Crazed, a fan favorite, and one of Eric Bischoff's favorite tag team in the company. So we can't wait to see what those two have to say next week. Two very large men with very large agendas in Capital Wrestling. I want to thank you guys once again all for listening. Give me a follow on Twitter at Sean Neutron, and come back here next Wednesday afternoon for another edition of the Capital Wrestling Podcast.